Hi, this is Stephanie from Spinsters in the Making blog on Weebly, and I am working on the number 12 Faithful block from the Sewcialites quilt along. So I am doing the 9-inch block, and for your background fabric, which is this white fabric here, I know the lighting's a little off. My print fabric is like a light blue with a oak pattern on it, just for reference. But for the background fabric, you're going to need 4 2-inch by 3.5-inch rectangles, which I have here. And then you're going to need 8 2-inch squares and another 8 2-inch squares for your background. And then with the print fabric, you have 1 3.5-inch square. Then you have your 2 and 3.5-inch rectangles, and then 8 2-inch squares and 8 more 2-inch squares. And the reason what you need all these 2-inch squares for is with your rectangles, you're going to need 8 of these to help make your flying geese. And then we're going to also be doing 4 patch blocks as well. So I'm going to start off with a 4 patch block, which is your B and F fabrics, but they're basically your 2-inch blocks in both your background and your print, and you're going to need 8 of the 16 for this. So with your 4 patch, basically you're going to line up your colors. So you want the print to be diagonal from each other and your backgrounds to be diagonal from each other. So I'm just going to line these up. Move this off to the side a little bit. So I've got them diagonal from each other. These are all of my print oak blocks. And then I'm going to put down my background fabric, which is a white print with a little bit of blue detail. And I will be taking pictures of this process as well, so if you want to see pictures of this block which have better definition, you can go onto my Spinster Station site on Weebly to see the update. I usually post the videos and the blog post at the same time, so you have options there. So now that I have these all lined up, what I'm going to do is do a 4-inch seam allowance on these, go across, and then I will snug my seams together after ironing to the dark side, which is going to be my oak blueprint, which again is the slightly darker gray that you're probably seeing on the screen. So that's what I'm going to do now, is I'm going to sew those to make my 4-inch, my 4 patch blocks first, and then we'll go on to the flying geese. So I'll be back when I am done with these. Alright, so I am back, and I have sewn across the way, and I have pressed to my darker side fabric. And now I can sandwich these together, since both of the seams are pointing a different way. I'll fold this over and I will sew these together with a 1/4-inch seam allowance, and then those will complete my 4 patch blocks for this full block. And I'll be back after I do that. Alright, so I am back and I have sewn my 4 patch quilt blocks all together. And for the steaming and the ironing of my seams, I've actually decided to do the middle seam open. It just lies flatter, I think. It's just a lot easier to work with if you're going to be quilting it. But you can always just iron it to whatever side you prefer to iron it to. I just find it lies nicer if you open up those seams in the middle. So now that these 4 patches are done, we can put these aside and we can start working on our flying geese. So we've got our 4 2-inch by 3.5-inch rectangles in both your background and your print. And then with your background, you're going to be pairing your 2-inch squares, 8 of them, with your print rectangle, and then 8 of your print squares here with your background rectangle. And what I've done is I've taken a fusion pen right here, and I've already marked it from edge to edge, just one straight line, and you're going to be sewing on those lines as you go. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your rectangle and you're going to make sure that when you put your background print on, you're going to be sewing on the line on here, and then you're going to cut about a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and you're going to press it. I would probably press it open, and then you'll take your second background fabric that has another line on it, and you're going to make sure that when you put it down to be sewn on into the corner of your other print block, that it is in your corner, but both of these lines here are pointed towards each other to make a point. So you're going to get your squares instead of a parallel. You're coming together to make a triangle in your block here. So I am going to line up all of my fabric and start laying it out and sewing, and I will get back to you as soon as I've done the first block sew, and then I'll show you my progress and how I've ironed my pieces. Alright, so I am back and I have done 4 squares for my print and 4 squares for my background. I've trimmed off the edges and I have ironed my seams open, so hopefully it will lie flat a little better. And so now I will take my other 4 of my background for my print and make sure that the line that I have drawn is going towards the other one to make a nice triangle once I have this sewn on the line, and I trim off the extra triangle piece. So you want to make sure that your line is going towards to make a point with your other block that you've sewn on to get your flying geese. So I'm going to lie all these on here, and I'll do the same over on my background fabric, taking my print square and making sure that it's making a flying geese pattern as I put these blocks into the corner to sew on the line. And with these ones I've also ironed my seams open instead of to one side to hopefully make sure that I don't get a big bunching of fabric or a thick part in my quilt. It'll lie flatter for quilting. Okay, so I will sew on the lines for all of these, and then I will trim and iron it open and come back to you when I'm done. Alright, so I am back with my flying geese now. So I have trimmed down to a 1/4 inch, and I actually ironed towards the square that I just sewed on. It'll make this lie a lot flatter and nicer for all of them, basically. And then what we're going to do is we're taking our flying geese, one that has your background as the triangle and one that has your print as the triangle, and you're going to pair them together like this and sew it into a block. So they have to look exactly the opposite from each other. So you're going to be pairing a background triangle flying geese with your print triangle flying geese to create a little square illusion. And you're going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance for these. So I'm going to pair these all up. And then I'm going to fold them down like this, and then do a 1/4 inch seam allowance on all of these. And I'll be back when I'm done with those. Alright, so I am back and I have made my flying geese blocks. As you can see, it kind of has a square in the middle, and I have ironed my seams open on all of these just so that they lie a little flatter. So now we can actually lay out our full block now. So in the middle, which is your D fabric, is the 3.5 inch square of your print. You're going to be putting that in the middle. You're then going to be taking one of your flying geese blocks with the print arrow pointing down. And you're going to have it like this. And then you're going to have your background print of your fort patch in the corner here. So you're going to have your whites, well, my background, which is my white, pointing in like this. And then you're also going to be taking more of your flying geese, this with my print arrows pointing in towards the solid block, like this. And then on the bottom, you're taking that print flying geese triangle and pointing it in as well. So all of your printed flying geese part of your blocks are going to be pointing into your middle solid print block. And then you're going to be taking your 4-patch with your background fabric, which is the white here for me. You're going to make sure that those are also pointing in towards that middle solid block here, like that. So this is the final layout of the block, and now I'm going to be sewing here, here, and here to get those together. And I will probably be ironing my seams out towards my 4 patches on the top and the bottom row, and then in the middle I'll be having my seams ironed in towards the solid middle block. So I will come back to you once I have sewn these rows together, and then we will fold these down, pin them to get good points here, and sew that, and then the block will be done, and I'll be back. Alright, so I am back and I have sewn all of my 3 panels. And so for the top and the bottom, I have pressed out towards my 4 patch, and then in the middle I have pressed in towards the large 3.5 inch solid print in the middle. And so now what I can do is that these should hopefully sandwich up pretty nice. I can nestle them nicely because the seams are ironed in the opposite way. And so I'm going to fold this down, pin this to make sure I have a nice good fit. So 1/4 inch seam allowance, probably iron the seams open on the top and the bottom. And so when I have done both of these, I will come back to you and you will have the finished block for today. Alright, so I now have the final faithful block for the Sewcialites Sew Along. It's the number 12 block. And for the final seams, I did iron them open. They're a little bit of a pain to iron open, but it does fly a little flatter than, per se, doing it to one side. And so hopefully this was a helpful video for you. I would be careful with corners and stuff because I know mine aren't quite perfect or as nice as I would like them to be. But overall, I think it's a really pretty block. And if you like my videos, please like or subscribe, to my YouTube channel. And you can also check me out at Spinster Station at Weebly, which is linked below in my comments section. And hopefully this was helpful. Have a nice day.